Have you ever been treated like you're worthless, like your life doesn't matter, like you're invisible in your own home? Now imagine growing up like that. Imagine losing your mother the day you were born. And the only family you have left turns around and treats you like a trash. That's exactly how it started for Neca, a poor, gentle village girl who never asked for too much. All she ever wanted was to be loved, to be seen, to be treated like a human being. But instead, she was beaten, overworked, and worst of all, given away to a man as payment for debt she knew nothing about. Yes, they gave her away. Like she was nothing more than a goat. This isn't just a story of betrayal and heartbreak, it's a powerful tale of resilience, revenge, and redemption. She was beaten, falsely accused, and traded like property. But fate had a bigger plan. The same girl they treated like trash became the woman they had to bow before. You think you've heard dramatic stories? Wait till you see how this one ends. Grab your popcorn, turn up the volume, and let me tell you a true life story of a poor village girl who married a poor man and woke up in a mansion. This story promises to be interesting, insightful, and educative. Trust me, you won't want to look away for a second. Before we'll begin this gripping true story, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like and share this video, and comment where you are watching from. At the edge of the village, where the road curved near the stream, lived a man named Uche. He wasn't just any man. He was respected, admired, and he was indeed blessed with wealth. Uche made his fortune in the city, dealing in precious stones and gold jewelry. People from far and wide sought him out, for he was fair in business and generous in spirit. But Uche's greatest treasure wasn't his wealth. It was his wife, Ngozi. Gentle, kind, and soft-spoken, Ngozi had the kind of beauty that didn't shout but sang quietly in the hearts of those who saw her. When she walked through the village square, children ran after her just to touch her wrapper, and elders prayed blessings upon her path. After years of waiting, Uche and Ngozi were finally expecting their first child. The entire village rejoiced, gifts poured in: yams, fresh fish, beads, wrappers. Women sang under the moonlight, celebrating Ngozi's swelling belly. But as fate would have it, joy was not to last. The night Ngozi went into labor, the sky wept rain like never before. Thunder roared in the distance. Inside their home, midwives worked tirelessly as Ngozi screamed and pushed, her hands clutching the raffia mat beneath her. Push. Just one more time, the elderly midwife shouted, sweat pouring down her face. And then, silence. A baby cried. A girl, Neca. But Ngozi's breath didn't return. She gave up the ghost, due to shortage of blood. Uche stood frozen at the door. He heard the voice of the baby, and not the voice of the woman he loved. He rushed in. Where is she? Where is Ngozi? He cried. The midwife looked up, eyes wet. She gave everything to bring this child. Everything. That night, the village fell into silence. No drums. No songs. Only rain and sorrow. Uche buried Ngozi beneath the tall iroko tree in front of their home. He sat beside her grave for days, refusing food or sleep. The man who once wore shining lace and gold wristwatches now looked like a shadow of himself. His beard grew wild, and his eyes were hollow. But life, stubborn as ever, marched on. While many offered their condolences and went their way, one woman stayed behind: Fola, Ngozi's childhood friend. She had never married, though many had asked. Quiet, always in the background, Fola was known for being helpful and prayerful. She approached Uche one morning with a gentle voice. Brother Uche, let me help you with the baby. Uche looked up. You've done enough. Thank you. Your baby needs a mother's hand. I can stay, just for a while. Until you're stronger. Perhaps it was the exhaustion, perhaps it was her sincerity, but Uche agreed. And so, Fola moved in. At first, she was the perfect help. She bathed baby Neca with warm herbs, fed her mashed yam and crayfish, sang lullabies by moonlight. Uche, still broken, was thankful. He gave Fola a room in the house and often called her a blessing from above. But Fola had her own prayers, prayers she whispered under the mango tree at night, prayers she never dared speak aloud when Ngozi was alive. God, she whispered, kneeling under the moon, if I have ever found favor in your sight, let this man see me. Not just as Ngozi's friend, but as his wife, let him love me. Let this be my time. 3 months passed. Then came the village elders, Uche's uncles, his father's brothers, men with walking sticks and loud voices. My son, said Uncle Eek, you're the only son of your father. You must marry again, we need a male child to continue the lineage. Uche sighed. Uncle, it's too soon. Too soon, barked another. Will sorrow raise your daughter? Will tears give us a son? We have waited too long. This is not only your decision, it concerns the family. After much pressure and sleepless nights, Uche agreed. But who would he marry? Some suggested he travel to the city. Others brought lists of eligible maidens. But one name remained on his mind, Fola. She was already in the house. She had cared for Neca as her own. She was gentle, mature, and godly. And so, one cool morning, with dew still fresh on the leaves, Uche called Fola to the veranda. Sister Fola, he began, voice soft, you've been good to me, and also good to my daughter. The elders want me to remarry, and I believe you're the best choice. Fola gasped, she covered her mouth, tears welled in her eyes. Are you sure? She whispered. Yes, Uche nodded. If you would accept my proposal. And just like that, Fola's dream came true. The wedding was small, no fanfare, just a few elders, a calabash of palm wine, and 2 witnesses. Fola wore a simple Ankara dress. She smiled from ear to ear, holding baby Neca close. The villagers gossiped in corners. This woman has been planning it, one said. But she's been faithful. Maybe she deserves it, said another. Fola didn't care, she had finally become Mrs. Uche, and 5 months later, she bore Uche a son named Segun. The house buzzed with celebration. Drums, music, chicken stew on every fire. Uche danced for the first time since Ngozi's death. He lifted Segun high into the air, singing praises to God. But behind the celebration, something began to shift. Fola held Segun tightly and looked at Neca, now a toddler, with different eyes. She's not my blood, she murmured. I've done enough for her, now it's my son's time. And so, the balance in the house began to tilt. Neca would soon feel the weight of Fola's hidden resentment. Her world, already shaken by her mother's death, was about to be turned upside down. The sun had barely risen the morning Segun was born, but already the house of Uche was bustling with joy. The cries of a healthy baby boy rang through the air like victory drums. Women danced outside, throwing powder in the air and singing songs of fruitfulness. Uche stood proudly at the doorway, his wrapper flung across one shoulder, smiling at the midwife who handed him the baby wrapped in a white shawl. A boy, one of the kinsmen shouted. At last, Uche has a son to carry on his name. Uche's smile returned, one that hadn't been seen since Ngozi's passing. He looked into the tiny eyes of the child, then glanced at Fola who was weak but smiling from her bed. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for giving me a reason to live again, Uche said facing Fola. Fola nodded. I only did what any wife would do. But in her heart, Fola felt victorious. She had what she always wanted, a husband, a child, and a household of her own. From that moment, things began to change, slowly at first, like a crack forming in a once solid wall. As the days passed, Fola's attention shifted completely to Segun. She nursed him like a queen tending to a crown prince. His cries got instant attention, his laughter filled the house like music. Neca, now a toddler, watched quietly. She would pull her stepmother's wrapper and get sent away. When she cried, Fola's response was brief and annoying. Neca, go and sit down, she snapped one day. Must everything be about you? Uche noticed the imbalance at first. Fola, he said one evening as they sat eating by lantern light, you hardly pay attention to Neca anymore. She's just a child. Fola sighed, I'm only one woman, my husband. You know how hard it is to take care for a baby this small. Neca is already growing, she'll be fine. But fine was far from Neca's reality. At a tender age, Neca began doing small chores like fetching water with a tiny bowl, cleaning plates, even washing Fola's wrappers while Segun played freely in the compound. One day, Fola handed her a heavy basket full of clothes to Neca to wash by the stream. But Mama, my back is paining me, Neca whispered. Back pain? Fola scoffed. Is it not your age mates that carry buckets of cassava in the farm? Go and wash those clothes before sunset. Segun laughed from the shade of the mango tree, peeling boiled eggs. He tossed one at Neca. Go faster, lazy girl. When Neca turned 8, her school fees became due. Uche was preparing the money when Fola interrupted. My husband, she said sweetly, sitting beside him, I've been thinking. That's always dangerous, Uche teased. She smiled, but her tone grew serious. We're spending too much. And truth be told, what does a girl need school for? Her place is in the home, in the kitchen. Why waste money? Uche frowned. She's my daughter. She will marry one day. And with your wealth almost gone from all these expenses, it's wise to save what's left for Segun, our son. Uche hesitated. Then sighed. What do you suggest? A tailoring apprenticeship, it's a useful skill. Girls make good tailors, let her learn a trade. Segun will go to school and become something big in the future. And just like that, Neca's education ended. Segun began schooling in a nearby private school, wearing polished shoes and carrying a lunchbox. Neca, dressed in faded clothes, walked to Madame Cease's tailoring shop every morning. Her fingers ached from sewing. Her back burned from sitting on the wooden bench all day. When Segun failed exams, Fola would laugh it off. My son is just special, she'd say. He doesn't need book knowledge to succeed. Uche, however, began to worry. Segun is stubborn, disrespectful, he confided in Fola one evening. He steals meat from the pot, he talks back. I fear what he's becoming. Leave my son alone, Fola snapped. Must you compare him with that tailor girl every day? Uche stood up. That girl has more discipline and respect than your so-called prince. She is not your real child, Fola hissed. Uche turned slowly, his eyes hard. She is the daughter of my blood. And if anything happens to her, I will hold you responsible. Fola said nothing. But her heart was burning. Over the next day it was a market day. The village square was filled with traders and buyers. Segun, now a lanky teenager, was caught stealing roasted corn and dried fish from Mama Akuna's stall. When confronted, he forcefully pushed her, causing Mama Akuna to fall. The crowd gathered quickly. Is that not Uche's son? He's becoming a menace these days. Where's his mother? They beat Segun before dragging him home in shame. Uche saw them from the gate and rushed forward. What happened? He cried. Your son was caught stealing, the trader shouted. Uche's eyes widened. God forbid. Before he could say more, his hands trembled, his eyes rolled back, and with a loud groan, Uche slumped to the ground. People screamed. Fola rushed out, her head tie falling. Uche. But it was too late. Uche had died. The house was filled with wails. Elders gathered again, this time to mourn. He was a good man. Gone too soon. 2 months later, Uche was buried beside Ngozi. Under the Iroko tree, Neca stood there, shocked. Her world had crumbled completely. She turned to look at Fola, who was already adjusting her head tie and giving instructions to relatives. And Segun. He smirked like a boy who had just gotten away with something again. Neca whispered under her breath, tears streaming. I'm alone now, I'm completely alone, she cried bitterly. The compound once known for joy and warmth turned cold the moment Uche was laid to rest. His grave, under the tall Iroko tree, stood like a monument of silence. The wind no longer hummed songs in the leaves. The birds that once sang every morning perched farther away. Even the goats refused to play near the compound. Inside the house, Fola sat like a queen on her wooden chair, shoulders high, wrapper tied tight around her chest, and Segun sitting beside her, his arms folded, lips curved in smug satisfaction. With Uche gone, no one could challenge her authority anymore. And so began the era of oppression and indulgence. Uche's death left behind more than just sorrow, he also left behind properties, cash savings, and a large piece of farmland. The elders had barely mourned for 2 weeks before they arrived at Fola's doorstep, with a pretending concern. Sister Fola, Uncle Eek began, sipping palm wine. "We are here to help you manage Uche's estate." "Manage it?" Fola snapped. "Am I not his wife? I was by his side when you people were nowhere to be found." "But tradition," another uncle began. "Keep that tradition to yourself," she barked. "I will manage what my husband left for me and his son. Go and argue with the spirits." The elders knew she was too fierce to tame, so they left in silence. Fola called a carpenter the next morning. She had Uche's room cleared out. His pictures were removed, and the wardrobe was handed over to Segun. When Neca tried to stop them from taking her father's radio, Fola slapped her across the face. "Don't touch what does not belong to you," she hissed. "You are lucky I even allow you sleep under this roof." Neca said nothing. Her tears had dried up months ago. Now, she endured in silence. By the age of 15, Neca was more of a maid than a daughter. She swept the compound before dawn. She boiled water, fetched firewood, washed clothes, cleaned the toilet, and cooked meals she wasn't allowed to eat first. Segun would sit under the shade of the mango tree, whistling and tossing pebbles, barking orders like a prince. "Neca, where is my food? Neca, polish my shoes. Neca, didn't you iron my uniform?" And if Neca was even a second late, Fola would come storming. "You want to kill my son with hunger? Lazy girl." Segun's friends came often, loud and disrespectful. They called Neca names. Housegirl. Tailor maid. Neca never responded. She only held the pain deep within, gripping her sewing thread a little tighter each day. Fola's eyes were blind with motherly pride. She gave Segun everything. Segun was fond of using his school fees for gambling. He also resorted into drinking and smoking at a tender age. Segun dropped out of school secretly but lied every day that he was attending school. He began bringing girls home, and when Neca tried to correct him, Fola shouted at her, "Are you his mother? Mind your business." One night, Segun came home drunk. He staggered into the living room and vomited all over the floor. Neca came out to clean it without complaint. As she scrubbed the tiles, Segun laughed. "You fit open dry cleaner shop. Look at you. Even my dog has a better life." Fola came out, took one look at the scene, and instead of scolding Segun, turned to Neca. "Why did you not clean this earlier? Do you want visitors to think we live like pigs?" Neca was speechless. She did not respond. She continued cleaning the tiles, making sure it was neat. Despite the cruelty, Neca remained the same. She still gave her stepmother a lot of respect. At Madame Ceece's tailoring shop, Neca was the most dedicated apprentice. Customers loved her stitching. Even Madame Ceece often said, "This girl. One day, she will be greater than all of us." When Fola heard those words, she scowled. Let them keep filling her head with nonsense. Neca used the small change she earned from minor tailoring jobs to buy notebooks and teach herself math and English at night, using old lamps. One night, Segun saw her writing and tore the pages. "What are you writing, Einstein? You think knowledge will save you? Better go and sleep." But Neca kept rewriting, kept dreaming. Because dreams were the only things they couldn't take from her. It was the dry season, and the soil was hard. Fola decided it was time to cultivate Uche's farmlands, which had lain untouched since his death. She sent for Barala, a quiet farmer known for his strength and humility. He lived on the outskirts of the village in a mud hut, wore the same patched trousers every day, and rarely spoke more than 3 sentences. When he arrived at the house, Segun sneered, "Look at this poor man. Mum, is this the man cultivating our land?" Fola replied, "Yes, he is." Barala simply nodded. "Good afternoon, Ma. I heard you need a farmer." "Yes," Fola answered. 2 farmlands. Prepare them well, I will pay you once the work is done." They shook hands. Neca watched Barala as he left. Something about him was peaceful and different. Barala, too, noticed Neca. He noticed the way she walked quietly, the way she served without being told, the way her eyes carried the weight of stories she would never tell. To pay Barala after he was done cultivating the land, Mrs. Fola had set aside some money for his payment. She kept it in her old leather bag and hid it under her bed. But her son Segun had other plans. When Sagan found the money while searching through the bag for his mother's ATM card, his eyes widened. He was shocked. He whispered, "This is like 3 weeks' worth of betting." He grinned. Sagan took all the money. The next day, Barala returned to say the farms had been completed. Fola smiled. "Well done. Let me get you your money." She entered her room. She opened the bag. It was empty. Her heart pounded. Sagan. Sagan. Did you take the money from my bag?" Sagan looked up, wide-eyed. "No, Mummy, but I saw Neca with your bag yesterday when she was cleaning." "Neca!" Fola shouted. "Neca, how could she?" When Neca entered the compound that day, tired and dusty from her tailoring work, she didn't even have time to greet anyone. Fola met her at the doorway with a cane. "Thief! You stole my money." "Mama, what money?" Neca cried, trying to dodge. Fola flogged her across the back. "You entered my room yesterday, didn't you?" "I was cleaning. I didn't touch anything, I swear." Sagan watched, arms crossed, nodding with false conviction. "Lie again and I will peel your skin," Fola shouted. Neca dropped to the ground, sobbing. "I didn't take it, I swear I didn't." But her pleas meant nothing. That night, Neca's body carried fresh wounds. Her heart carried deeper scars. The next day, Barala returned for his payment. Fola stood at the doorway, lips pursed. "There's been a problem. My money was stolen." Barala raised a brow. "But we had an agreement. I have nothing to give now for now, but I have a daughter to give you as wife." Neca, standing behind the curtain, froze. "You can have her as payment. She's hardworking, young, clean. Take her as a wife." Barala was silent. His eyes moved slowly to the trembling girl behind the curtain. He saw the bruises, he saw the fear. And then, he saw something else, dignity that refused to be destroyed. "I will take her," he said calmly. Fola packed Neca's clothes in a nylon bag, no wrappers, no slippers, no gifts. She handed the bag to Neca like giving leftovers to a beggar. "Go. Maybe you will learn to be useful for once in your life." Sagan laughed. "Don't forget your sewing needle." Neca said nothing. She turned once to look at the house where she was born, where her mother once lived, where her father once sang her lullabies. And she walked away with Barala, into the unknown. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know who she had become. The path leading to Barala's home was rough, bare red soil peppered with dry leaves and sharp stones. As Neca walked behind him, barefoot and sore from the beatings of the day before, her heart felt as heavy as the black nylon bag in her hand. She didn't cry this time. Her eyes were dry. Her lips sealed. Her mind full of questions. What kind of man accepts a girl as payment? What will he do to me? Is this how my story will end? She asked herself. Barala's home stood alone at the far edge of the village, surrounded by tall grasses, wild flowers, and a quiet stream that trickled softly like a lullaby. Mr. Barala's hut was simple. Clay walls, a rusted tin roof, and one wooden door. Inside, a mat lay in one corner, a bench on the other, and 2 lanterns hung from nails. "Come in," Barala said gently. Neca hesitated. He turned and met her eyes. "You are not a slave. You are not a payment. You are safe here." Still unsure, she stepped inside. Barala handed her a bowl of warm water. "Wash your feet." Then he brought out a plate of yam porridge with ugu leaves and dried fish. The smell filled the room. Neca stared at the food, unsure. "I made it," he said with a half-smile. "It's not poisoned." Neca blinked, then she slowly sat and ate. This was the first real meal she had ate in days. Days passed and Mr. Barala made no demands. He worked his farm from dawn to dusk. Neca swept the compound, fetched water, and helped him pound yam in the evenings, but always by her choice. He gave her a mat to sleep on, not far from the window, and placed a fresh wrapper over her like a father tucking in a child. When she offered to sew his torn shirt, he watched her fingers dance with the needle and thread. "You have good hands," he said. "Do you enjoy sewing?" Neca nodded. "I want to open my own shop one day. In the city, maybe." Barala said nothing, but in his eyes, a new light flickered. Barala didn't talk much, but he listened. And when he spoke, It was always with purpose. He never raised his voice, never cursed, and never mentioned Fola or Segun. Not once. But each evening, he would sit on the bench outside, holding a tiny notebook, scribbling in it with a black pen. Nneka noticed. She asked one day, "What do you write in there?" Barala smiled. "Plans." "What kind of plans?" "You'll see." Early one morning, the unexpected happened. Neca was sweeping the compound when she heard the rumble of an engine, a deep, smooth hum that didn't belong in their part of the village. She looked up and gasped. A sleek, black jeep drove slowly down the narrow path toward the hut. It gleamed in the sunlight like something out of a movie. It stopped in front of the house. The door opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out. His shoes didn't have a speck of dust on them. His voice was smooth. "Good morning, sir," he said, bowing slightly, facing Barala. Barala stepped out of the hut, adjusting his faded shirt. "You're early." The man nodded. "The Lagos meeting was moved. I thought I'd brief you before heading back." Neca stared in shock. The man handed Barala a leather folder. Inside were printed documents, graphs, and a tablet. Barala scanned the first page, then nodded. "Thank you, Tunji. Wait for me inside." The man entered the hut, leaving Neca outside with her thoughts spinning like a whirlwind. Barala turned to her. "Come." Neca followed him in, her heart pounding. Inside, Barala sat down on the bench and patted the space beside him. Neca sat cautiously. "Let me tell you who I really am," he said. "I was born here in Amako. My parents were farmers. I left the village after secondary school, got a scholarship to the city. I studied agricultural engineering, started a business. Failed twice, tried again. Now, I own multiple agro companies in Lagos, Abuja, and even Ghana." Neca blinked. "But the mud hut, the farming. I came back searching for something I couldn't buy with money, a good heart, someone who would treat me like a man, not a bank account. I disguised myself to see how people would behave if I had nothing." He paused. "I saw many things. I saw how Segun squandered your father's money, I saw how Fola paraded herself like a queen, but most importantly, I saw you." Neca's voice cracked. "Why didn't you stop them?" "I couldn't interfere. Not yet. But now," he looked her in the eye. "Now, the story changes." That night, Barala and Tunji stayed up late, drawing up documents, making phone calls. Neca watched quietly, still unsure if she was dreaming. 2 days later, new clothes arrived, gowns, shoes, perfume, hair cream. Tunji brought stylists from the city who braided Neca's hair, polished her nails, and gave her a new look. "You look like a queen," one of them said. But Neca still looked in the mirror and saw the girl who used to sleep beside the kitchen. Barala handed Neca a package. "This is your tailoring business license. The shop will open next week in Enugu. You'll manage it. It's all yours." Neca's hands shook. "But why me?" Barala responded, "Because even when the world gave you pain, you gave back kindness." Back in the village, the compound of Uche was no longer shining. Fola paced around, yelling at Segun. "Where is the money, N? All gone. You sold the farmland. You mortgaged the car." Segun groaned. "How was I supposed to know gambling was addictive? I thought I would win the money back. Win it back." Fola slapped him. "You ruined us." The only thing left was the Uche's house. Fola and her son had no choice but to sell it, because they were honestly bankrupt, and even putting food on the table was a problem. The next day, Uche's house was listed for sale. Fola and her son boldly painted the words "for sale" across its walls, a desperate declaration of how urgent they wished to sell the house. The next morning, a jeep drove into Uche's compound. Tunji stepped out with a black folder and briefcase. "I'm here to buy the house," he said. Fola welcomed him with false politeness. "You will love this house, it's very spacious. The house belongs to a successful businessman." They agreed on the price. Tunji handed her the documents. She scanned it briefly, then paused. "Wait," she said. "This name, Neca?" "Yes," Tunji replied. "She's the buyer. My boss." "Your boss?" He pointed to the car. "She's in there." Fola turned slowly, and the door of the jeep opened. Neca stepped out. Her skin glowed, her gown flowed, her eyes held no hate, only power. Sagan rushed out. When he saw her, his knees buckled. Neca. Fola dropped to the floor. No, it can't be. Yes, Neca said calmly. It's me. The silence that fell over the compound of Uche after Neca stepped out of the jeep was thicker than harmattan dust. Fola's mouth trembled, her wrapper slipped slightly from her shoulder, she gripped the wall behind her for balance. Sagan's eyes widened as if he was seeing a ghost. But it wasn't a ghost. It was the girl they had cast out like a trash, standing tall, beautiful, and confident in a flowing gown, with calm fire in her eyes and power in her presence. I am no longer the girl who washed your plates, her eyes seemed to say. Tunji walked to Neca and opened the folder again. Ma, they have signed. The house is officially yours. Fola's voice cracked. Neca, my daughter. I am not your daughter, Neca replied, her voice soft but firm. Sagan fell on his knees, hands shaking. Please, forgive me. I was foolish. Tears ran down Fola's cheeks. I was blinded, I thought I was protecting my son. Neca stepped forward and looked them both in the eye. Do you remember the day you gave me away like a sack of yam? She asked. Fola sobbed. It was hunger. I had no money. You had money, Neca replied, until your son gambled it all away, and you defended him, every time. Sagan dropped his head. I wish I could undo it all. The crowd gathers, word spread fast. Villagers began to gather at Uche's compound, some whispered. Is that Neca? She came back rich. She bought her father's house. Children peeked through windows, elders stood at the gate whispering. I knew that girl had destiny, Mama Sisi said, pushing her way to the front. Barala arrived shortly after, dressed in a clean white native attire, followed by 2 men in suits and a woman carrying files. He greeted the elders, nodded at Neca, and turned to address the crowd. Today, he said, the daughter of Uche has come back not in shame, but in victory. Her suffering was not wasted. Her kindness was not in vain. Inside the Uche's compound, Fola and Sagan were still on their knees begging Neca for forgiveness. Please, Fola begged. Let me stay. I have nowhere to go. My father's house is in ruins. Sagan added, I will leave Neca, just allow my mother to still stay here, I plead with you Neca. Neca's eyes narrowed slightly inside the house. She looked at her father's framed photo on the wall, the only thing left untouched. She turned to Barala. What do you think? He answered softly, this is your story, not mine. Neca looked back at them and said, you can stay. But not as owners, this house is mine now. You will live in the back room, no luxuries. No servants. Just enough to survive. Fola nodded quickly. Anything you say. Neca continued. But if you disrespect me, or anyone I care about, Neca's voice dropped lower, you will leave forever. The next morning, trucks arrived carrying new furniture. Neca restored her mother's room, she lit incense and prayed at the spot where Uche used to sit and read the Bible. Barala brought her the keys to her tailoring shop in Enugu, now fully renovated and stocked. You deserve more, he told her. And you gave me more, Neca replied, her eyes wet. She opened the shop 2 weeks later. The signboard read, Neca's Needle. Customers flocked in from nearby towns. Within weeks, she hired 3 apprentices, girls like her, who had been denied of education and respect. We have come to the end of this story. Join me next time for another captivating story. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Before you go, please help me grow this community. Click the like and share button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting African stories. I honestly got you covered. Thanks for your time.